Hello. Welcome. Welcome to Live Brunch. Yes, thank you so much for joining us. I've got Christine and I've got Matt with me today, and we're just going to be continuing the conversation from the preach. So, Matt, can you give us a quick summary of what...
Of course. I think this message is, well, often they are, but this particularly seems like a countercultural message, because I guess what I was talking about was authority, and the social pressure around us so often is to abdicate authority, because authority tends to be quite a negative word, negative associations that we have with it. But the Bible's wisdom for us is that the solution to bad authority that we see lots of examples of is good authority, to steward authority well, because when we do that, it brings blessing to others. Like, authority can be a good thing, and when we bring it to an environment, people flourish, whether that's in the workplace or in home life as well. It's a good thing. And so God helps us and brings His wisdom for us to steward authority well. So that's where I went today.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Well, we have got some questions to go through, including some from the chat. So
Great.
I'm going to kick off with those. So first question is, you were talking a bit about, actually can't remember what it was said, but what do you suggest to someone who is being asked to lead, but doesn't necessarily think they've got it in to do it? Doesn't see much of a leadership quality, I guess.
Yeah, and this can often be the case. I think probably for everyone, probably when they first start leading something or ask that they feel inadequate. And I would probably start by saying that's not totally a bad place to be, because actually there's a humility that comes to that. When people, oh right, now's my opportunity to show everyone what I'm going to do. That's probably not a helpful response to being given authority. So I wouldn't be put off by the fact that you feel inadequate with it. If that perceived weakness, causes you to depend on God more and say, God, you need to help me with this. That's not a bad place to be as well. But I think one of the things that I brought out in the message was about recognizing that even though we might not feel that we're qualified, actually we've been given authority. And therefore, if we've been given authority by God, then there's purpose in that. Mm-hmm. And we don't need to keep apologizing for it. You need to own that authority to an extent, and just take small steps to use that, not in a sort of domineering way, but in a way, let's just set a goal, this is what my authority is about, be clear about that, and just take small steps. Christine, do you want to say some more?
Well, just that nobody's perfect. Yeah. Nobody leads perfectly, and we shouldn't let that hold us back from leading, because it's okay. I think one of the best pieces of advice that I read as a parent was that you don't have to be a perfect parent. There's no such thing really, is there? And it's just the same with any kind of leading, that there's not a perfect leader.
Yeah. And I guess with that, it's kind of placing yourself around people that you do look up to with leadership, and like you're saying, parents, like walk that alongside parents that you kind of see great qualities in. And it's good to.
But not compare yourself with unfavourably with other people, because we're all different, and our leadership styles will be different.
That's really good. That's really good. I remember I was going to say it was the bit that you said, like little in our own eyes. Is that what you said?
From the passage. Yeah,
that's good. Okay, cool. Well, another question. It's often not easy being an authority. Like, it can feel like a kind of lonely at the top, nobody understands what I'm going through, you don't understand the pressure that I'm under, that kind of mentality. What would you say to someone who is feeling that way right now?
Yeah. I think that question is particularly relevant perhaps in the situation that we're in. If you're in business, if you're having employees, you're having to make some tremendously difficult decisions, redundancies, or the shape of your business, or that sort of thing. So I have tremendous sympathy for anyone, and we have many in our church who are in that type of situation where you're having to make very difficult decisions that you don't want to make, but you're needing to make because of the situation that we're in, and that I'm sure it can feel like a very lonely place. You're the bad guy. You're the one making people redundant, perhaps, or making cuts here and there and that sort of thing. But I think similar to what you said just a moment ago, I think it can feel no one understands this or but that's not true. That's not true. Okay, no one might be in the very specific role that you're in your business, but there'll be other people that have related experience. I mean, even in the church, we have a business small group that is for people that they can talk that out and think, this is what challenge I'm facing. And it's not so that someone else says, oh, right, well, here's what you need to do. But as a listening ear, someone who understands, someone can pray with you, talk with you, that sort of thing. Obviously, it's an unenviable position to be in a difficult leadership role in business right now, but that does not mean that you need to do that on your own. And if you feel like you're alone, that's not going to be helpful to you. Reach out to others, join a group like that, or just any other small group, because we all need community, as you were saying.
Yeah, that's really good.
And the fact that all authority is given us by God means that actually we're not at the top. He is. And there's a sense, well, not just a sense, but God is with us. And he's with us when we feel like that as well. He's not just about church. He's about business and work, wherever we find ourselves, and we can always ask him for help, and he is always with us in it. And actually he says, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask. And that's just such a great thing to do if you feel like that.
That's really good. Yeah, that's really good. Well, we've got a question from the chat. So abdicating authority is bad. What about someone who feels unsuited to authority, seeking to not get into a position of authority, but to just be useful, just be a useful team member?
Yeah. Well, I think hopefully that's not come across in my preach in terms of not saying that everyone, to be a Christian, you have to be an authority. You know, that is not the case, and there's nothing that is more spiritual about being the leader. It can feel like that, especially in church. Oh, how I'm really going to be really spiritual is I'm going to be a leader in this, leader in this. Like, many people can lead, and it does bring blessing to others, even if they didn't think they could. But that doesn't, there's not a scale that has leadership and spirituality together. No, not at all. I think God, there's something specific about authority. But I think if you are not in a position of leadership, you shouldn't feel that you're somehow, not being as effective, whether that's in the workplace or in church or in wherever. You should feel affirmed in that. Having said that, I think sometimes we might not be in a place of leadership now, but we might be in the future. And so learning to, if there's things that we can learn now and look at examples of good leaders and think this is a good way to go about it. As we said before, often the people that don't see themselves as a leader actually end up being very good leaders because they're not seeking the limelight. They're actually just wanting to serve and seeing the goal and wanting to help and pursue that. And you'll probably find if you do that, people do give you responsibility because actually that's someone who trusts. It's not about them, it's about what we're trying to achieve. And actually those people work very well in leadership.
I think a lot depends on how we view leadership as well, because if we look at Jesus, we see that he was a servant king and he led by serving people. He washed people's feet. So I think sometimes we can think that we have to have a prominent maybe platform role or something like that, or leading a group, and that makes us a leader. But I think we can equally lead by serving well, because we are leading others when they see our example, for one thing, and that there's no differentiation really in terms of value between those things, because that's really important.
I think sometimes as well we can have this idea that someone who's a leader, they need to have these very specific characteristics. They need to be someone that's very charismatic, or someone who has the loudest voice in the room, or that sort of thing. And that's not necessarily the case. Or even someone that desperately desires to lead. I mean, even speaking personally, like I've probably led many things, including being a pastor in the church. In one sense, I've never asked to lead anything. I don't see myself as someone with great, ambitions to lead. I never sort of set a course. I'm going to be the leader. It's like, no, I think I as Christian said, try to obey what God says by serving and playing a part. And the Bible says that at the right time, God raises you up. I think that, it's not wrong to aspire to leadership. The Bible also says that, if anyone desires to be an overseer, that's a good thing. Okay, great. But if you're faithful with little, God will give you much, and that's often good. The way around it happens.
Do you think also that we use authority when we speak truth?
Yeah.
So in the work setting, for example, if we're asked to do something that we think, that's stretching the truth or something, or I can't say that because I don't think that's true. I think we're wielding authority in those situations because we're bringing truth to bear in those situations.
Yeah, and acting with conviction.
Yes.
Rather than just being blown around with whatever happens.
Yeah.
That's really good. It's good. Okay, I'm going to go on to another question. You focused on having authority, but what's the Bible's wisdom on responding to authority, especially in this kind of like anti-authority culture that we live in today? And you mentioned,
Yeah, I think we've got to. We have to be careful about this one because, what I said in the sermon, Romans 13, authority is given by God. And so I think that's one principle that, lens through which we see this. Whether that's the government, whether it's our boss, or whether it's our parents, authority is there given by God. And that seems like a weird one sometimes, but that is what the Bible says. And so I think it is that should instill in us an instinctive respect for authority. It's right to honor authority. It's right to be respectful of authority. And I would say that's not conditional on us agreeing and thinking that the authority is doing really well, or even completely matching what God has to say. Most of the authorities that we'll have and be under, especially in the workplace, they're not going to be godly authorities. They're not going to do things according to what the Bible says, because why would they? They don't know God probably. But does that mean, it doesn't apply anymore? We don't need to have that verse about honoring authority. No. We should honor and respect the authority that we're under, because in doing that honors God. That is a point in itself. Now, does that mean we have to approve everything we do? They do? No. Does that mean that we have to agree with them all? Does that mean that we have to get into a situation where we just have to go along with something that is not honest or wrong or that sort of thing? No, but you can disagree and hold to your conviction in a way that is respectful. Yeah. And I think even especially in terms of more widely when we think of government and that sort of thing, there's just it's very easy just to criticize, just to be undermining, just to laugh at the government or councils or things like that, and just have a very disrespectful attitude towards them, because that's what everyone's doing. It's easy to join in on that. Now, the Bible checks that in us. The Bible doesn't allow us to just join in with that. Doesn't mean we have to agree with everything the government does, but actually having that respectful attitude honors God.
Yeah.
But it's also important to think about where authority is not good. It's abusive, perhaps. And what the Bible is not teaching is that we just have to blindly submit to that kind of authority. I don't know if you want to say that. There's a line there. Okay, so I think when we are under authority that is abusive, or when it's directly contradicting the way that God is, that is, just because we should be respectful doesn't mean we should put up with that. And I mean, let's just go there. Whether you're in the workplace or in the home, for example, there might be there is in the home for a husband to be abusive to his wife.
okay, you can find verses in the Bible about, you know, submitting and leading and that sort of thing, but that does not mean that a husband being abusive to his wife is acceptable. And it's absolutely not acceptable. And a wife honoring her husband doesn't mean just saying nothing about it. What's the right thing to do there is to flag that up, to speak to the police, speak to someone, say this is not right, I'm not standing for this, I don't have to stand for this. That is the right thing to pursue, because that is a godly thing to do, to say, no, that's wrong. And our line has been crossed there. And so this idea of just because there is a wide principle in the Bible about respecting authority, that doesn't override everything else. No, there's lots of other things the Bible has to say about what is good, what is right, what is honest, what is true. And those lines need to be clear.
If there is someone at home right now that is kind of resonating with that, what would you recommend them for them to do? Is there someone that they can speak to?
Yes, certainly. So, I mean, in our church, we have pastoral team in each of the sites. There is elders in each of the sites, and that would be the thing to do. If there is an authority that is abusing you, harassing you, whether that's in your home, whether that's in the workplace, you should say something. It's possibly appropriate to phone the police, and because that is. That, you know, if a crime has been committed, that is important to do that, and so, definitely.
I'd just say about, you know, this question about respecting authority, that I think we have such a negative view of authority, because as Matt said, that we have lots of baggage about those words, especially in our culture. But actually, authority is given by God so that we all flourish, and we flourish together. So it's hard for us, I think, to think of good examples of authority. And I think the reason for that is that what you would probably see is, oh, those people are flourishing, I wonder why that is. But you're not thinking, oh, it's because of authority that's being really well used. So if you have, I don't know, a class that's getting on really well and there's some good learning going on, it may well be because there's a really great teacher who's exercising authority well, and that works across the board. And families should be a place of trust and security that is created by good authority. So I think sometimes it's good to look at it from the other side, because otherwise I think we're thinking, oh, what about this, what about this, what about this? But actually, you know, we have to admit this is a difficult issue, and it's hard for us to think about it without any kind of agenda or anything that's, you know, our own baggage that's coming with us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I think as well, like, we need to remember that there is, and one says a principle of sowing and reaping with this as well. You know, I've tremendous sympathy and empathy for parents trying to, parent their children through this when they're juggling kids being at home, trying to work as well, and I'm sure many parents are feeling completely inadequate with that. And for me to encourage, you know, stick with it. You need to parent, that sort of thing. Even if you get it perfect on a given day, it probably will go sideways. But you get it. You keep pursuing that day after day, week after week. Keep drawing those lines. Keep communicating to your children about not just what are the bad consequences, but these are the things that we're going for. Keep trying to get the Bible in there. Keep trying to get the gospel in there. Keep acting in grace. And it's not that week it'll go well. It's actually over time there's a harvest that will be reaped. It's not like if you tick the boxes, then you have perfectly well-behaved children.
And flourishing doesn't mean perfection. And on any one day, flourishing's going to look different, isn't it? But it's about the atmosphere and the culture.
And I think the same is true when you're having to make tough decision at work. Like, you have to make a tough decision, you have to make someone redundant. That's not nice.
No.
And just because it might be the right thing to do doesn't mean it's not going to suck. It's not going to suck for you, it's not going to suck for them. So when I'm saying, like, this is good, this is right, this is the thing to do, to take authority, not abdicate it, doesn't mean on that day it's going to feel great. It's not going to feel great. But it's the right decision in the long term. You know that actually if you didn't make that decision, it would be worse for you, it would be worse for them, it would be worse for other people in the company. And so there's that principle of sowing and reaping. You sow well and you'll yield that harvest. And
that's good. I feel like we're coming right to the end, but we do have one more question on the chat.
Great.
Which I want to fire away, and then I'd love to hear the small group questions that we've got for this week.
Oh
yeah. I don't know if we've got them with us. Okay, so the question on the chat is, we all have that desire to resist authority. How can we continue to steward our authority well when those who are leading continue to resist and go against our leadership? Should I read that again?
Yes, please.
We all have that desire to resist authority. How can we continue to steward our authority well when those who we are leading continue to resist and go against our leadership?
Yeah, I think it's really difficult. When you're trying to lead and the people that you're trying to lead don't want to be led. That's difficult. That is difficult. But I think the only thing that we can say really is what we just said a moment ago in terms of like sticking to it, and that in the medium to long term that it'll be beneficial. Doing the right thing is difficult. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but I think when it's led in the leadership in the right way is going to be helpful to people. I think keep communicating as well. Sometimes people are at the end of a decision, but they're resistant to it because they've not been involved in the process of why are we making this decision? Why do we have to do this suddenly?
Yeah.
And actually good leaders know part of being proactive is communicating, taking people on the journey.
Yeah.
This is the challenges, this is what we're having to face, this is why we've had to make this decision. It just gets people on board and helps them to understand the decision rather than just being not at all advocating authority means right, do this and never explain why. Good communication is really a strong part of good leadership.
Yeah. And we were talking earlier, weren't we? And you said that that's not what you do anyway. You're not about telling people you must do this. You're bringing people to Jesus and looking at the scripture together. So that would be in a church setting. I think that question you'd probably answer it very differently in different scenarios, wouldn't you? Whether you're a boss or or what? Yeah.
I'm just getting the small group questions up.
Yeah, okay. Just got them up here.
Oh, you go for it. You go for it.
Okay, so questions to discuss in small groups this week. What has been your experience of having authority? Second question, in what ways does the Bible's wisdom on the topic challenge your thoughts and feelings about authority? And another question, when it comes to God being an authority, how does that sit with you? Is there the wrong type of fear, or do you not think of God as an authority figure at all? And the last question to discuss is how does the gospel demonstrate good authority? So
there you go.
Questions. Is there anything you guys want to say on those?
No, just enjoy your small groups because we're starting small groups this week, I think.
Oh, great! There we go.
There you go.
But yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next week.
So yeah.
Bye.
Bye.